Residents, of course, are still protesting. They say they want President Cyril Ramaphosa to show up, and they are upset over high crime rates in the area. Let's touch base now with Manqoba Mchunu just to understand exactly what's happening there between, of course, the residents and the police. Manqoba, what can you tell us? What do you see there?
Well, Tumelo, I can tell you that tensions are certainly high here in Diepsloot. Just a short while ago, there was a commotion between police as well as some of the community leaders that are in the front line of this protest. And this is after one of the residents was arrested by police, and there was a bit of a confrontation that took place between the police as well as the community that are demanding that this particular person be released by the police. And the police have given this community essentially 5 minutes to disperse. They are saying that what they are doing here on the streets is not allowed. The fact that they are shutting down businesses, they are forcing these businesses to shut down, they are not going to accept that as the police today. So they have arrested one of the residents, and just a short while the leaders are saying that they're not going to be intimidated by the police, saying that they're going to push ahead with their protest, and they're still continuing along the way, shutting down some of the stores here. But the police are here on the ground, just behind the group that is marching here. They are keeping a close eye on what is happening here this morning. And the residents are insisting, Tumelo, that they're not going to back down. They're going to continue with their protest. And they are demanding that those that have been arrested be released. So what they are doing now, Tumelo, we understand, is that they are going through the different extensions, and this is where they are essentially shutting down businesses that are open, but also just, making sure that these streets are closed. But I can see that the leaders are talking to the people. Let's just listen in to what they are saying.
Okay. Yeah, from here we'll talk to our people also, so you must never be intimidated. We've got the right to be here. We are protesting. We are not burning tires. We are not doing anything wrong. And we told them that we'll be in the streets up until Ramaphosa comes. So they are trying to intimidate. Let us not give them what they want. And by doing all these things, it doesn't mean we are afraid of them. At the right time, if they want the battle, they will get it. But let's cooperate for now. Let's be on the streets. And we are serious when we are saying we are going to get their names, this police who are doing this thing. Because they think that they are dealing with people in jail. Maybe we must tell them that we are not just people. Even legally, we can challenge them. So we'll get their names. Whoever that will cause havoc here will follow that individual to the court of law.
Well, as you can hear, one of the community leaders here, Diepsloot, just speaking to the residents, basically giving them the marching orders that they're going to continue with this protest, saying that they're not going to be intimidated by the police. They're here, they have a right to be here on the streets of Diepsloot. It is a peaceful march, they say, even though we've seen some of the businesses being forced to shut down literally by some of the protesters. And when I spoke to one of the community leaders earlier on, Loisa Toyi, saying that they need to ensure that businesses are also here on the streets, because they are also equally affected when it comes to crime in this community. They are also targeted when criminals pounce on residents here. So they need to also join so that the message is stronger that this is a community that is really fed up with crime here. So they are still continuing, Tumelo, as you can see. This is despite the police having said that they might need to disperse, giving them essentially a few minutes to disperse. But there was a bit of a conversation that they had, with the leaders of this protest, where they've said that they need to ensure that they need to keep the peace. They need to ensure that they don't intimidate any of the business people here in this area, and saying that if that's going to happen, then they're going to disperse them. So it does seem like they're going to continue, they're going to press ahead with this particular protest. They are now passing Extension 1, which is one of the areas that they say crime is high in this particular area. So at this particular stage, we haven't seen them, Tumelo, really destroying any of the stalls or any of the shops that belong to foreign nationals, which is what we've been seeing throughout this protest. When residents took to the streets, they've essentially been doing just that, even yesterday, targeting some of the shops here in this area, which they say are contributing to crime. This is where the criminals hide, they say, in these particular shops at night, and they then rob community members during the night. And I think just speaking to some of the residents, they are saying that they're tired of crime here. They know that when it's the weekend, that's when they're going to see a spike in crime here. They're going to see people being robbed and killed in this community. And of course, it reminds you just of John Makula, the former CPF chair, who was also killed here in some of the activities, the criminal activities in this community, trying to foil a robbery that had happened here in this area. So, Tumelo, the situation is still remaining tense, and residents insisting that they are going to continue with their protest. I'm just going to let you listen to a little bit of that net sound. So essentially, what they've also been saying is that they'll want the malls also in this area to be closed, so that the impact of this particular protest is felt. And in fact, they are heading towards the malls here. There are two malls that are adjacent to each other here in Diepsloot, and this is where now they are heading towards. They had said earlier on that they want to ensure that there is no business activity that is happening here. We're seeing even vehicles being turned away, and essentially residents trying to mobilize along the way as they continue to call on others to join in this particular protest. But I must say, Tumelo, that we're not seeing quite the large numbers, the big crowds that we've been seeing here throughout this protest. It does seem like there was a little response to this particular march today, but the leaders are saying that that does not in any way reflect on this particular march, or whether people are losing interest in continuing with this shutdown. They are saying that more people, of course, are going to join as they continue to mobilize. But we also saw yesterday schooling being severely affected here in the area. The schools had to shut down because of this protest that had been happening here. And I guess even today, schooling is going to be also affected, if at all there is schooling that is taking place in this community. But residents, we're not sure where they're heading to. Perhaps we need to just gauge one of the leaders, what their plan of action is going forward. And I'm just going to try and reach one of the leaders just to check how they're going to be going ahead with this particular protest. Lefa, if I can just ask you, Baba, we saw just that commotion with police. So they're saying that you need to disperse.
No, they were telling us there is this individual who have been troubling them, ever since they started the operation today. He's in the police parking, and we told them that we are together with them because we don't want people to do as they are told that gentleman was doing. We are walking in the street of Diepsloot. We are not burning tires. We are not doing anything. But I told them that we've got the right to be on the street of Diepsloot. And it seems like they want to take advantage of us. And I told that gentleman to say, they must never think that our battle will end on the streets. Even if they want us to take them to court, we'll talk to our lawyers so that we initiate that process and, tell them that To be on the street of Diepsloot is our right, and no one will be taking that right away. We are just giving them the warning. We are not going to disperse. We are on the street of Diepsloot. We'll be in the street of Diepsloot up until we are saying we are suspending the protest. It can't be the police who will be telling us that we must move on the street. It's us, the leadership of these people, what that will be calling off or suspending this protest.
But the police are saying that you are violent, you are forcing people to shut down their shops, and that this is not, a peaceful protest as you claim.
No, we are not forcing people to close their shop. People are intimidated by looking at people walking in the street in numbers.
But we saw some of the protesters going to ask people to shut down.
Exactly what the police were telling us. And the gentleman who was at the forefront doing that, he's in the hands of the police as we're speaking. Yes.
Okay. So what's the next step now? Is there any particular area that you are marching to, or are you just still mobilizing community members?
For now, we are mobilizing our people. Once the numbers are clear, then we'll communicate as what is the way forward.
Okay, thank you. That was one of the community leaders here from the Diepsloot Community Forum. Speaking to us there, saying that they won't be intimidated by the police. They're going to continue with their protests. They're going to push ahead with their protests. There's not really a plan as to where they're going to proceed from here, where they are going. They're just marching and mobilizing people along the way to join this protest. So it does continue, Tumelo, as you can see. Residents are really not paying any attention to the threats that have been made by police for them to disperse, saying that they're not going to disperse. They have a legal right to be on the streets here, and the leaders saying that this is their community, so they really won't be told by police as to what to do when it comes to fighting crime in this area. Of course, this is what sparked this particular protest. It is not the first time that these community members are marching here on the streets of Diepsloot. In fact, yesterday you recall that they marched to the local police station where they had essentially asked audience with the police. The station commander had come to speak to the residents, which is where they then aired some of their concerns as far as crime is concerned in this community, saying that they want an end to crime. They want the police to do their jobs, to police this particular, because they are saying that as things stand, they do not feel that the police are doing enough to curb crime in this community. And in fact, when the police minister was also here, they spoke to the police minister, saying that they want an intervention from government. And this is the reason why they'd gone as far as the union buildings to try and get the police or the government rather, to send a delegation of ministers as well as the president to try and iron out some of the issues here. But what they are calling for are lasting solutions to crime in this community. They are saying that they want to ensure that when the president does come here, he gives commitments and rubber stamps those commitments that community members are going to be given. And this is why they've gone directly to the office of the president. They also agree that this is not a one department issue or one ministry issue, but it needs various departments and ministries to be part of the solution. The Home Affairs Department, as well as the Justice and Human Settlement Department and the police. So they were told that there will be response teams here on the ground. The tactical going to be coming from those various departments, but they're saying that is not enough. They still want a commitment as to when exactly the president is going to come to this community. You can see they're moving in to the crowd. They've essentially blocked one of the roads here in this area. Residents are saying that despite what the police are telling them, they're not going to listen to that, because it's them that are suffering at the hands of criminals in this community. It's them that are affected by crime in this community. I want to also just bring in some of the residents just to understand the crime situation here. Siswami, ngiyazi nikhala ngobugebengu kule ndawo, niphatheke kanjani indaba yobugebengu?
Lesiphatheke kakhulu bhuti kabuhlungu kakhulu andiyazi uba ndingayibeka kanjani na ngoba every week akunalanga lamahala siyafa siyakhuthuza sibanjwe inkunzi ayikho into esingenziwa singele emikhukhuni silele kuthiwa masithule emikhukhuni yethu ngoku sikhathele sithi thina ngoba siyabazi uba ngobana sithi thina aba bengengoba lapha bangaphesheya kwamalwandle mabahambe mangithi abasezimbabwe manibize njalo mabahambe asisabafuni la ngoba sonwabanga ngenxa yabo.
But nasisiqinisekiso mama ukuthi bona basezimbabwe
kakhulu isiqiniseko sinaso sithetha ngento esiyaziyo and isenza into esiyaziyo bangabo.
So nizolokhu niqhubekile nje manje nokubhikisha nize nithola impendulo.
Sizalokhu siqhubeka engakafiki ipresident yethu sizaqhubeka siya phambili. Sifuna yona nomphathi wamapolisa bake bazosichazela ngoba kuyafana amapolisa akhona adla amantshontsho emasayithini abababambi.
Besawathemba nje kodwa amaphoyisa mama.
Asiwathembi lamapolisa ngoba asijikele emva thina singabale eSouth Africa. Asiwathembi total.
So nifuna ukuthi niboneni la station sense amaphoyisa.
Sifuna ukubona kakuhle intshontsho lingabikho. Uba kuthiwa kubanjwe abantu bangaphandle kungathiwa kubanjwe abantu bangaphandle namhlanje kusasa bayaphuma uzodizwa siphinde sijayiva naye apha elokishini aphinde azosibulela more ngezibhambi singazazi uba basithatha phina obviously basithatha amapolisa nezozibhanga ngoba sibazi basithatha phina.
Thank you. That's just one of the residents explaining that they are tired of the issue of crime. She says that they want those that are behind the criminal elements here in this community to be rooted out, to leave this community. And she made a specific mention that those are Zimbabwean nationals that they say are behind the crime that is happening in this community. So she also says that when I ask her how sure are they though that these are Zimbabwean nationals that are behind these activities, her response is that they're quite sure as a community because they have caught some of these criminals in those acts, and some of the people that have been arrested are in fact Zimbabweans. And I must emphasize what the residents have been saying, that this is really not anything to do with the fact that they do not want foreign nationals in this community. They are saying that they are those foreign nationals that work well with this community, that do not do any criminal activities. It's only that certain group of foreign nationals that they say must leave this particular area. And they've also been saying, Tumelo, that, as far as, safety is concerned, they feel that they, are really at the mercy of criminals in this community. It's the criminals that, are the ones that really are in control of the streets here. They can't walk at night. They cannot sleep at night peacefully because of the crime that continues to happen in this community. So, as you can see, they're still continuing just on the different extensions here in this area. The main road here, this is where they are now, just essentially shutting down the businesses here in the area.
Manqoba, it's now Masego here on all angles, and I just want to talk to you about the strategic area that Diepsloot is in. I think a lot of people don't understand that if Diepsloot is shut down, it'll affect many things, including the N14, which is close by, that they've been threatening to block, for instance. That will affect business, and the suburbs that it's close to. Just talk to me about that.
You're correct, Paseko. In fact, there is one of the main roads here that heads directly to the N14. That is the R511, which, of course, is also a road that heads towards Fourways and Johannesburg. So it is one of the big roads and a crucial road as far as the movement of people and goods is concerned. So if this area is shut down, if there is impact here, that is also going to be felt by those that will be using that particular street. But what has been happening, Maseko, is that police have been trying their level best to keep the protesters from going to the R511. Of course, that didn't happen yesterday. In fact, we saw them making their way to the R511 and essentially blockading that street. But police, again, were quick to act. They managed to open one of the lanes to ensure that there is a movement on that particular street. We saw, of course, that there were trucks, there were vehicles that were using that particular street that could then move, because of the fact that there was a lane that was operating. So the police are trying to keep them clear of that particular road at this particular stage, and they are just ensuring that the protest, if it is continuing, it does happen here inside the settlement itself, which is what we're seeing here. The residents are not moving towards the N14, they're not moving towards the R511 rather, but proceeding to the different extensions here on the main road, though, of Diepsloot inside the location itself.
And so, Manqoba, where exactly are they trying to get to? It looks like they're trying to get to the mall there in Diepsloot, and I assume this is why you're saying police have warned them that they cannot go to places of business.
Indeed, Masiko. In fact, there was the marching orders from the leaders to say that they don't want to see any business activity happening here. They don't want to see any businesses operating here. They want businesses to stop operating, and they want, essentially these protesters to march peacefully together somewhere and not to intimidate any of the businesses here in the area. We see also that the police are moving in and trying again to disperse this group, forcing them. It doesn't seem like at this particular stage they are dispersing them, but rather we see that they are moving closer and trying to speak to the leaders. Of course, they indicated that they're not going to be intimidated by the police. They're not going to allow the police to dictate how this particular protest is going to continue. They've been told now to stay clear of the road, the main road that is, while stun grenades, as you can hear there, being fired by police. And community members are running in all different directions. Police had said that they want them to disperse, and saying that they'll want to clear the main road here. So police now firing stun grenades and just ensuring that they're dispersing the residents here and giving chase to residents. We're seeing rubber bullets being fired.
And I mean, Manqoba, yesterday the police, we heard from the leader there, the community leader there, saying that the police did warn them that this time they've mobilized and the number of police officers there would be more than the community members. Is this what you're seeing again today?
That's certainly what we're seeing here, Masiko. Quite a number of police here on the ground. In fact, they had indicated earlier on that they're not going to allow the situation that we saw here yesterday. They're not going to allow any acts of lawlessness here to take place, where businesses are being forced essentially to shut down, where people that are using the roads are being intimidated. And so they warned earlier on, Masiko. And in fact, during that commotion and confrontation that they had with residents, that indicated that they're not certainly going to allow them to continue with acts of violence or acts of intimidation, which is why they're now saying that they want to step in. They want to ensure that those activities do not continue and try to disperse this group of protesters that are here on the streets. I can tell you, Masiko, that we're seeing more police here today than protesters themselves here on the ground. And of course, there have been arrests as well that have been made by police. One of the residents has been arrested. The police saying that this is one of the people that had been forcefully shutting down businesses here. They've been trying to talk to him to stop what he was doing, but he didn't listen to the police, and this is the reason why they arrested him. And also the leaders of this march saying that despite the fact that they had committed to being peaceful, there have been some elements or some people that have been violent, and so they also did not have a problem. He says that this particular person was arrested by police. So, as you can see, Masego, the situation still, we're not seeing any sign of protesters here on the streets at this particular point. They've dispersed in different directions, and what we're seeing is this road, the main road, again being open, and vehicles are being able to pass here on the street.
But do you get a sense, Manqoba, that the community members will remobilize themselves, even though they've been dispersed for now? Will they, for instance, go to another area and try to block that particular road?
Well, Masego, they had indicated earlier on that they're not going to be intimidated by police, and that they have a right to be here on the streets of Diepsloot. In fact, I do believe that they're going to regroup. In fact, they indicated that no amount of intimidation is going to stop them from continuing with their protest, from vocalizing really what is happening in their community, the terror that they are under at the hands of criminals. The police had, of course, said that they are going to disperse them. They've given them 5 minutes to disperse. And just as you saw now, the police taking a heavy hand as far as this is concerned, firing rubber bullets. But I don't think that residents, this is the last time we're seeing them here on the streets. They're saying that they're going to continue, Masego, up until the president comes to this area, up until the president comes to address them.
Manqoba, those residents who are not part of the protest, the ones that are standing there on the sides of the road, I see you giving us the visuals, for instance, of them, and I see a woman carrying a bucket, seemingly, maybe a business in terms of selling amakwenya. Usually that's what they have. What are they saying in terms of what they're seeing? It doesn't seem they're part of the protest, but are they supporting it?
Well,
those are the cops.
Well, the police again, Masego, as you can see, shooting at, or pointing rather, firearms at residents. So at this particular point, I mean, it's still also to police who really is part of this protest and who is not. These are just community members that had been standing here looking at what was happening. But the police at this particular point are just ensuring that they clear the streets and that none of the protesters are going to make their way back here to the streets. So essentially everybody who's here on the streets, if there's a grouping that they see, the police are just ensuring that those are not people who are part of this protest, and they are moving to try and disperse them. So as things stand, Masego, the police are still here on the streets, but we're not seeing any indication of the group that was protesting earlier. But they're still moving, Masego, just checking where they see large groups of people, just checking whether or not these were part of the people that were protesting earlier on. But certainly police not accepting any violence here today, not accepting any intimidation here today, moving here on the streets. In fact, we're seeing more police here on the ground on foot and just checking and seeing whether there's still any protesters here on the streets. It's the South African Police Service. We're also seeing Metro Police here working side by side to try and keep some calm here in this area. And of course, allowing the roads here to be open and for people to be able to really do their business here and to shut essentially what this protest wants to achieve, which is a total shutdown.
Manqoba, tell me, did Bhekile share what his plan is? I mean, this community is saying that they will not stop until the president comes to Diepsloot himself and addresses them. The president's spokesperson yesterday confirming that the president's diary is full for the next 2 weeks and Diepsloot is not slotted in any of the events there. All right, before we talk about that, what's happening there? I see that's the community leader.
Yes, Masego, in fact, who you're seeing here is the leader, one of the here, Lifankala, being arrested by police. I want to just listen to this.
It's fine. Okay. Is it? Can we have a chair?
No. We gave you a chance. We gave you a chance.
Enough now, bro.
We gave you a chance. Too much chance from yesterday.
Well, one of the community leaders, as you can see, being arrested by police, saying that they'd given them a chance since yesterday to disperse and not to conduct any violence here in this area, but that has not happened, as we saw earlier on. In fact, one of the questions that we asked to community leaders is, what do they say about the violence and the intimidation that is taking place here? And they had said that they were not violent and that they were maintaining that this in fact is a peaceful protest, saying that they support the police in arresting those that are conducting criminal activities here. So as you can see, one of the leaders arrested, some community members also arrested, and police still on the move and clearing the streets, essentially ensuring that there are no more protests that are here on the main street of Diepsloot.
Manqoba, I'm not sure what was in Lifankala's hand. Is there any particular reason police took him in the manner that they did? Is it only because of the fact that they're tired of the protest continuing after community leaders, agreed with police yesterday that they would stop?
Masiko, I think the police are quite aware that he's one of the community leaders. In fact, that he's one of the leaders that have been leading this particular protest. Of course, earlier in that commotion that took place, it was Lifankala that was in an altercation with police. He essentially told them that they won't be intimidated by them and that they have a right to be here on the streets as a community and that they're going to continue with their protest. They won't be threatened by the police. So I think it's on that basis that the police are then arresting Lifankala. He was not carrying anything that we saw in particular. He had said that their protest is going to be a peaceful one. Well, we can see police are not allowing any of the community members here, groupings, to be here on the streets, firing rubber bullets at the crowds that they are seeing here on the streets, and essentially not accepting any form of violence or any grouping here on the streets. So the police are on the move here on the streets, just ensuring and effectively looking out for anyone who could be part of this protest. I remember yesterday there was also an engagement at the police station where the community members had raised concern around some of the allegations that their leaders were being targeted and that they were going to be arrested. I think the station commander had indicated that those allegations are not true and that they're really not targeting any of the leaders of this protest. But today we're seeing one of those leaders, Lifankala, being arrested by police.
And Manqoba, it looks like the police's strategy is to make sure that they don't get onto that main road, because it also leads to the mall down that particular road, if I remember correctly, Manqoba. But also if they go around the mall, they'd reach the N14. Am I correct?
Masiko, I cannot hear you, but I can tell you that the police are still on the ground. They're still moving here on the main street. So there are now about 4 police vans that we're seeing here, and police that are on foot, essentially checking and looking if they see any signs of protesters here. This is one of the streets that had literally been shut down yesterday. You couldn't move on this particular street because of the burning tires and the rubble that was here on the street. Residents had blockaded the streets with rubble as well as burning tires. In fact, we also saw some of the shops being burnt here at this very street just a few days ago. But it certainly looks like police are not going to be accepting this. They don't want to see any violence taking place here this morning, and they're ensuring that they disperse this particular protest. And we're not seeing any signs of the protesters now. And of course, many seemingly have fled. But we'll see how it's going to go, because these residents and their leaders had said that they're not going to be intimidated. They're going to continue with their protest.
And Manqoba, I was saying to you earlier, if you can hear me now, it looks like the police's strategy is to make sure that they are along this particular main road at extension 5 in Diepsloot. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it leads to the mall. And if the community members are able to reach the mall and then go around, they'll reach the N14. Right, it doesn't look like Manqoba Mchunu can hear us. While we try and figure out what exactly is going on, let's stay with these visuals, and I'll try to explain to you in terms of what's happening in Diepsloot. If you've just joined us, this is All Angles here on eNCA, and we're live for you in Diepsloot. It's the northern township that has been protesting for a second week now after the killings of a few of their community members and a community leader whose memorial service was held earlier on this week, and Police Minister arriving there to also speak on behalf of the police. But of course, Diepsloot residents have spoken about how they don't want to hear from the police minister anymore, because all his interventions for the past 4 years, Diepsloot has been protesting about the same reasons for about 4 years. The first time after the killings of 2 young girls who were found at a field, an abandoned field in the area. They were murdered, and their killer actually was arrested and even sentenced. So what we're finding there, what you're seeing there rather, is police trying to make sure that people aren't able to get to the mall. Manqoba, I understand that you can hear us now. Just talk to me about the police's strategy. It looks like they're trying to stop them from reaching that particular part of Extension 5 in Diepsloot, which leads to that strategic mall, and around the mall is the N14 highway. Am I correct? Is that their strategy, to keep them away at least from that part of Diepsloot?
Certainly, Maseko. In fact, that's what we're seeing. Police want to keep the protesters out of the main streets here. This is one of that, one of those streets here that heads to the malls and ultimately to the R511, which is just, I think, less than 500 meters from where we are. So essentially that seems to be their strategy, to keep them off here on the main streets and to ensure that there's no disruption at all here on the streets. In fact, I think we see a police van speeding towards the direction of the mall. So we understand that police are stationed at the various areas here, the strategic areas, to ensure that they are able to stop this group from trying to get to those strategic businesses, including the mall. And of course, as you can see, the road is open. We can see movement now of vehicles here on the road. But I can tell you, Maseko, that the police are still here. There's still quite a number of police vans that we saw, and earlier on they did indicate that they'd mobilized enough to ensure that the situation is kept at bay and that it really doesn't get out of control, as we've seen in the past few days, where residents had taken to the streets, where residents had destroyed some of the shops here, which they say belong to illegal foreign nationals, undocumented foreign nationals that they say are here in this community. So we saw the residents dispersing and running at different directions, and the community leaders also running away. And we don't know what's going to happen of this shutdown. The police accepting the violence that has been unfolding here on the streets.
And Manqoba, obviously these community members are feeling as though all the interventions by Police Minister Bheki Cele are not actually bearing any fruit, and that's why they're calling for the president to be the one to come there. But I wonder if any of the community members are aware that one of their leaders has been arrested, and I wonder, Manqoba, if you think there'll be some sort of retaliation to that particular arrest of Lefankala.
Well, judging, Masiko, from what, the protesters were saying when they had that engagement yesterday with the station commander of Diepsloot police station, where they raised these issues, the concerns that they'd heard allegations that the police are targeting the leaders of this particular protest. They'd made it quite clear to the station commander that they know who those leaders, the community leaders that came to police to say that the leaders must be arrested are. And they were not going to mention their names just to ensure that their lives are not endangered. But what they cautioned the police is that if any of the leaders of this protest are arrested, all hell is going to break loose here in this area. They were going to intensify their protest, and they were going to ensure that the streets are inaccessible and that there is utter chaos here in this area. I don't think that some of the protesters are aware at this particular point that their leaders have been detained. One of their leaders has been detained at this stage, and I think they dispersed. They didn't see that happening. It only happened after police had fired the rubber bullets as well as the stun grenade here, dispersing essentially the residents. They'd warned them, Masiko, that they must disperse, and if they don't, they're going to ensure that they force them to disperse.
All right, Manqoba Mchunu live for us in Diepsloot there. As you can see, residents intensifying their protest, but police did warn them since yesterday that they've been able to mobilize and get more numbers to ensure that they cause no more damage to people's homes and people's businesses. We've got Manqoba Mchunu and Teddy Munyembane on the ground for us, and they'll keep giving us those visuals live for you. Police at some point started shooting rubber bullets to disperse the crowd, and that's why you're seeing that main road so quiet at the moment in Diepsloot. But every now and then there is some action, so Manqoba Mchunu will stay with us and he'll be able to give us an update as the story develops and goes along. And as you heard yesterday from Vincent Makwenya, the spokesperson of the president's 2-week schedule is full at the moment, and Diepsloot is not in that schedule. So obviously the residents of Diepsloot will then intensify their protest.